Hello and welcome to PubShorts episode 57, Clampdown. Hi, Tony.
Hey, Keke, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm back to producing on my computer some tracks after a bunch of months, and I'm happy. How have
You,
you been?
you are the new. I'm trying to think of a politically correct music producer. Yeah, you're the new. Yeah, excellent, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Every head, every name that came into my head was had a negative connotation, so I'm not
Uh,
going to mention.
all right, all right. So my name is Dr. KK. I'm the innovation officer at Trinca and Inago, and Tony will introduce himself, the show,
Of course.
and also why we are calling this episode Clampdown.
Let's talk about the reason why this show's called Clampdown. First of all, I mean, first of all, I'm impressed with the fact that we managed to name two consecutive episodes after great songs by the Clash.
It is not too consecutive. It's the 55 was a Clash reference. London
Oh,
calling, AI
two
calling.
recent,
Yeah,
yes, 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 yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah. Okay, two relatively recent episodes after the wonderful Clash, who were a wonderful band, deeply missed. I'm Tony O'Rourke, and it's called Clampdown because we're talking about some of the impacts of Trump's administration and some of the impacts they're having on research over there. Um, so yeah, I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Inago, and I look after relationships with publishers and with societies around the world who are looking to improve the level of service they offer to their members and authors.
Excellent, Tony. So let's get right to the first story. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So this story is from Science, and it's
Yeah,
titled DOGE order leads to journal cancellation by U.S. Agricultural Library. So this
yeah,
is
yeah.
Department of what is it? I forget.
Agriculture, Department of Agriculture.
No, I mean DOGE expands to what the
Oh,
Trump
that's the
efficiency,
DOD,
right?
the Department of Government Efficiency. I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah. So this is again, so Dodge order leads to journal cancellations by
Doge.
U.S. Agricultural. So library. So the USDA has cancelled subscription to nearly 4,000 journals, but there's an interesting trend. It's obviously a part of the federal spending cut drive. Now, there is concern because journals from 17 publishers, mostly non-profit, were affected, but whereas journals from major publishers like Elsevier and Wiley were not impacted. So the researchers are frustrated, and apparently the reason why the bigger publishers' journals were not included in the cut because they have a larger readership. So it's an interesting decision. I mean, people will have to make such cuts, but is that fair that larger publishers get away with it?
Is it fair? No, of course it's not fair. But sometimes the world isn't fair, and both of these publishers have got huge collections of journals, and many of those journals are leading journals in their field. So I'm sure that I think I told you before this call started. I was at a conference recently in the US. It's a
Mm,
library conference, and one of the things that came up reasonably regularly was the impact
mm.
of some of the US Department of Agriculture announcements. And one publisher was saying, that they've lost something like 70% of their subscriptions with this one institution, but they only had like 20 subscriptions with them. Um, if I don't know what packages the DOA was taking with Elsevier and Wiley, but you can imagine it would be a very large
Yeah,
life science collections with hundreds and hundreds of journals.
right.
So no, it's not fair, but you
Yeah.
know, mm,
So, Tony, I'm asking you to put on your publisher hat. If you're a non-profit publisher and if you've just faced these kind of cuts, you will
yeah.
probably need to renegotiate with the government and probably figure out another strategy, right, to get
Well,
into the library.
I think it's more complicated than that. You renegotiate if there's an opportunity for them to come back in and say, okay, I want to buy it, but I want to buy it at a lower price. The budgets have been cut, so it's not a
Right.
question. And the DOA is saying to institutions, look, I don't want to cancel. I don't want to cancel. Your journals being used.
Yeah.
Some of your journals are really, really important to us, but I've got no choice. I've got to cut whatever percent of my funds. So um, it's not a case of renegotiating. It's a case of, I think, sitting out and being patient and waiting
Mhm.
until the policy changes. But I don't see that happening in the next 3 years.
Right. So we have a similar situation, not a similar situation. In India, the ONOS initiative has been in place for about 3.5 months now.
Yeah.
And, we offer
Oh,
consultancy services to publishers in terms of negotiation with the government so that they can
yeah.
be included in these plans. So what would something like that also help in this case, is what I was trying to ask you.
I suppose it might offset some of the losses elsewhere if they can,
Mm,
find a way of being part of the ONOS deal. And as you say, we
mm,
can provide support in particularly in countries like China and India,
mm-hmm.
so don't maybe have the level of penetration that they'd like to have there.
Right, right. Okay, I'm moving on to the next story, which is a Nature news article. It's again, we're covering stories related to the Trump administration. So it's titled Trump Team Survey Sent to Overseas Researchers Prompts Foreign Interference Fears. Now, this is a classical headline. I would probably read it in the newspaper as well. So, this survey is targeted or targeted regarding the US funded researchers overseas. And the questions focus on links of the research to China or the researcher to China, as well as DEI projects. Now, it's natural that academics would feel threatened, and academic freedom is in question. So some universities apparently, I mean, I cannot, I've read a summary of the article elsewhere. Some universities advise against responding to the researchers, which is
Yeah,
interesting. And they've
yeah,
got only 48 hours. I mean, this story came out like 2 weeks ago. So it is, I think I asked you a couple of times, how is the Trump administrative decision or the things that Trump administration is doing in the vis-a-vis US research going to affect international researchers and research, and this
yeah.
is one such side effect, isn't it?
Well, there is it's a reality that the US government directly has been directly supporting and funding overseas research projects or projects outside of the US. In the interest of the research of the institution of national research, it seems that much of that funding is under threat, particularly in
Mm,
certain subject areas. So
right.
I think it's right for academics to be concerned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't see what the alternative is.
Right, and 1 week move. I mean, 1.5, 2 weeks later, after this story came out, we are talking about all sorts of tariff cuts, and the entire stock market is in turmoil, and
Yeah,
people. I think the government of China is also taking strict measures against the tariffs. Now, they are
yeah.
also questioning research related to China or researchers affiliated or linked to China. That's concerning. So I'm moving on to the
It is.
next article. It's a Nature news story. It's titled "Boggles the Mind: U.S. Defense Department slashes research on emerging threats." I think we have talked about a similar story.
Yeah,
So the projects affected include studies on AI in combat and extremism online. And the Minerva Research Initiative, which funds social science research, is heavily impacted. And researchers are likely to lose millions of funding and affecting progress of many of the research projects. Now, the problem, I mean, the criticism against this is that the such funding cuts would limit the understanding of military conflicts, the nature of military conflicts, and the causes of these conflicts. Now, the Department of Defense also aims to ensure fiscal responsibility by prioritizing mission critical activities. So, again, related to funding cuts related to the US administration affecting research. And again, I guess publishers and researchers need to take some sort of measures to sort of expect such things to happen in the future. Do you have any suggestions? This could also affect international research, I would assume.
um, no, there's so many news stories I just find mind boggling. It's just confused me how these kind of cuts can be in a national interest.
Right.
We know about the growth of AI. We know about the growth, not the research, the real way AI is being increasingly used in research and in other areas as well.
Right.
And surely it's the government's responsibility to be able to protect themselves against these potential threats. So I'm completely confused. I
Yep.
mean, I will say from a business perspective, you know, if you're a publisher watching this and you're not sure how this is going to impact in your business in certain key markets like India or China, for example, we can certainly provide expertise that can advise you in how to move forward through our
Excellent.
consulting services.
Excellent, Tony. Thank you. And the